A 5-year-old boy high on cocaine shot his toddler brother in the head, and prosecutors have charged their parents with neglect. So tragically, the 16-month-old boy, his name Isiah Johnson, has died. We're not given the full details there. I presume he was dead on the scene. And of course, rest in peace, Isiah Johnson. Such a tragic loss. We're not told the name of his brother. We are told that the brother is 5 years old, and I presume that's him in the picture in the thumbnail. There's a couple of pictures in the video, and what a tragedy it is for him, how traumatic it will be. Perhaps he already realizes what he's done. Perhaps he doesn't at this point, but I have no doubt that at some point he'll be informed, and that's going to be psychologically and emotionally decimating for that 5-year-old boy. Of course, it wasn't his fault. The 5-year-old was being a child, playing with a gun, which he shouldn't have had access to, but he did have access to it. Seemingly, the gun was unlocked in the home. We don't know if it was legally owned. This tragedy happened in Lafayette in Indiana. I'm not too familiar with the gun laws in Indiana, how strict the gun control is, but the mother, her name is Isiah Tiara Welsh, 24 years of age, did own a gun, so I presume legally. She claims that she usually kept it in a box under the bed, and that box was locked, but she recently lost a second set of keys for it. Is that true? Maybe. I'd say probably not. I doubt a 4-year-old's going to be stealing the keys, stashing them away to access the gun at a later date. I mean, that doesn't ring true to me, but what do I know? And we are told that the 5-year-old boy was found to have cocaine in his system. He tested positive for cocaine. The 16-month-old baby boy that lost his life, Isiah Johnson, had marijuana in his system, in his blood. How the heck did that happen? Perhaps merely by being present in a room in which marijuana is being smoked? Maybe. I don't know. Does it work that way? I would think yes. But it's disgusting, obviously, to have a child exposed to marijuana, and absolutely horrendous to have a 5-year-old boy exposed to cocaine. How much cocaine? How much did that affect the 5-year-old? We don't know. I presume, I hope that it was just trace elements, but maybe the cocaine played its part in this terrible, terrible situation. So again, this tragedy happened in March 2023 at the family home in Lafayette, Indiana. The parents, Deonta Jermaine Johnson, 27 years of age, and Isiah Tiara Welsh, 24 years of age, have been charged with neglect and various drug charges. Officers found 93 fentanyl pills, drug paraphernalia, and they also found the father trying to hide a bag of marijuana after the incident, after the tragedy. So his son has been shot by his other son. His 16-month-old baby boy, Isiah Johnson, shot and killed. And what is the father concerned with? Well, he's concerned with hiding his stash of marijuana. We're not told how big the bag of marijuana was, but my guess, could be wrong, but my guess is it was quite large. He had 93 fentanyl pills found, or rather, that was found at the property. Perhaps the mother owned the fentanyl pills. Perhaps they owned them mutually. My guess, could be wrong, of course, but my guess is they're drug dealers. Either they are or he is, would be my guess. Maybe she is. But I presume the father, Deonta Johnson, is an habitual drug dealer, has plenty of fentanyl pills, has marijuana, drug paraphernalia inside the apartment, and I guarantee the mother was fully aware, has been, perhaps before they hooked up, perhaps since before they entered a relationship together. The mother, likely, in my estimation, I'm just putting things out on my rear end, but I would expect that the mother knew she was in a relationship. She was having children with a drug dealer. Is that an important point? Well, I would say yes. I would say to the mother, Isiah Welsh, you let yourself down, you let your children down by entering and keeping a relationship, by bearing children with a drug dealer. The mother has made several social media posts. I'm going to read some of them out. I wish heaven had visiting hours, because Isiah, I'm missing you. Not a day go by, mommy don't think about you. I miss you so much, I'll give it all up just to hold you again, to tell you I love you, just to smell you one more time. What is life without you? On the day of Isiah's funeral, the mother posted the following. I'll read it out. Today has been the hardest day of my life. How the F do I say goodbye to my son, my 1-year-old baby? Shit so crazy. I lost my best best friend. My life will never be the same again. Now, typically, I would say full condolences to the parents. And I think that the mother's words are genuine. My read is that she has lost her child and she feels guilty for that. She feels devastated for that. Maybe she doesn't feel guilty for that. I don't know. But she is devastated for the loss of her child. But I'm going to be an arsehole. I'm going to say a couple of things, and some of you may not like what I have to say. I've not prepared this, by the way. I'm going to be going straight from the top of my dome, as it were. Number one, she has to blame herself. And, of course, she has to blame the father. Between them, they were drug dealers. Between them, they had 93 fentanyl pills in the home at that time. They were habitual drug dealers, exposing their two children, at least two children, to drugs, exposing the local community to drugs. I don't have a bee in my bonnet about marijuana. I'm not a user myself. I have been at certain points. But fentanyl, however, we're all reading very bad stuff about fentanyl. It kills. So these two scumbags are going around making a few dollars off of potentially killing people in their community. And let's be real, it's going to be young people that take the drugs by and large. So I find it a little bit difficult to feel a great deal of sympathy for the mother. I can see she's hurting, but she created this position. She was damaging her community. Even if she wasn't doing the drug dealing herself, I guarantee she was aware of the drug dealing that her husband was doing, or the father of the children were doing. She stood by. She likely assisted, in my estimation. She was likely a party to the drug dealing. But even if she wasn't, she stood by, let it happen. Allowed her children to be exposed to the drugs. Allowed her 5-year-old boy to have cocaine in his system. Allowed his 5-year-old boy to have access to her gun. She claims it was normally locked. Whoops-a-daisy, lost the keys. Not good enough. And I'm going to say something else which really I perhaps ought not say. I am a little bit annoyed by one of her posts. I'm going to reread it out. Today has been the hardest day of my life. How the F do I say goodbye to my son, my 1-year-old baby? Shit, so crazy. I lost my best friend. I'm going to say something here, and I might get several complaints about what I'm about to say. I don't like what she said there. I don't like it. She's talking in urban speak. Ghetto talk, okay? Now, this is coming from me. I didn't grow up in the ghetto. I grew up in England, a nice little town. I'm drenched in white privilege, blah, 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 right? But to me, this is annoying. She's talking about her 16-month-old baby boy, Isiah Johnson, who was shot and killed by her other son, who will also be suffering horrendous trauma because of this. And she's talking in ghetto speak. Like, why? Why can't she just show a little bit of deference? Is that the right word? Perhaps it isn't, but I don't know, just really shit so crazy. I don't know, it just seems too demeaning, too casual to use that kind of language for this type of situation. Don't get me wrong, if you want to go around speaking in urban slang, yeah, whatever, that's totally normal, that's totally fine, don't have a problem with it. But for me, in this instance, talking about the death of your own son at the hands of your other son, when she herself is at least to blame to a fairly considerable extent. I guarantee she was aware that there were drugs in the home. And the gun was hers. It was unlocked. Her 5-year-old son had access to the gun. She's to blame to a very large extent for the loss of life of her son, Isiah Johnson, 16 months old. And she says, shit so crazy. How the F do I say goodbye? I mean, I don't know. It's not respectful enough. To me, and maybe I'm being an asshole here. Maybe I'm out of pocket, but it shows a lack of maturity. It just shows a lack of resonating with the real world. I would have thought something like this would wake a person up, get them to mentally realize, you know what, I've been living my life too casually. I've been living my life as a drug dealer. I've been living with a drug dealer with multiple fentanyl pills, bags of marijuana. It's cost me the life of my son. I need to make changes. Do you know what I mean? Just like grow up. Maybe I'm out of pocket. I'm not trying to be racist. Again, I don't have a problem with people using slang, urban terms. No problems with that at all. But in this instance, it just seems not reflective of the severity of the situation. Shit so cray. Come on. Anyway, I've gone on a bit of a rant there. Feel free to comment about that if you agree, disagree. You can use fruity language if you like. I don't mind. Maybe YouTube will, but I won't. We're told that both parents remain in custody. They're awaiting extradition to Lafayette after being arrested in LaPorte City, 80 miles north of Tippecanoe County. So if I understand correctly, the pair of them, the mother and the father, did a runner, if I understand that correctly. It's not spelled out in the article, but they have to be extradited. So they ran away? Is that what happened? Was the 5-year-old boy with them at the time? Don't know. The article that I read through hasn't been clear on that. But thankfully, the pair of them, the father, the mother, both have been charged with neglect resulting in death, 2 counts of neglect and neglect resulting in bodily injury. They've also been charged with conspiracy to commit dealing a narcotic drug, conspiracy to commit dealing marijuana, possession of marijuana, and possession of paraphernalia. So they've both been charged with drug dealing, but more importantly, they've both been charged with neglect resulting in death. They're facing between 20 to 40 years in prison, also a $10,000 fine, whatever that's worth. My feeling is those charges aren't enough. If I'm understanding correctly, they're drug dealers. Their irresponsibility exposed both of their children to the ingestion of drugs, perhaps on an ongoing basis. Their irresponsibility led to their 5-year-old son accessing an unlocked gun and then shooting and killing their 16-month-old baby boy, Isiah Johnson. 20 to 40 years in prison. Not enough. 20 years isn't enough. And guess what? The woman's going to get the lighter sentence, isn't she? I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. And it really shouldn't. I will say 20 years in prison is a very long time, sure, but I'd rather see 40 years for the both of them. Their actions need to be exposed for not being tolerated in society. How do people become drug dealers? I used to buy weed. I used to buy, some more party drugs at a certain point in my life. I know people become drug dealers to get a little bit of extra cash, but I don't know. Why would you be dealing in fentanyl pills? We know how dangerous fentanyl can be. Why would you do that? Why would you expose members of your own community to the risk of not only becoming addicted, but dying from fentanyl? Huge numbers of people in America die from drug overdoses, primarily fentanyl and other opioids, if I understand correctly. I think the number's like 100,000 deaths a year, but I could have that wrong. I'm going to say full condolences to any sane, loving members of the family. Hopefully the 5-year-old boy will be looked after by a sane, loving member of the family. If not, I presume he'll be entering the Child Protective Services system, which is far from ideal, but certainly better than growing up in a drug-dealing household. And that 5-year-old boy, again, we don't know his name, but he needs some prayers. He needs a lot of attention, a lot of care, a lot of therapy, no doubt. He perhaps realizes what he's done. He perhaps remembers finding the gun, picking up the gun, holding the gun, pulling the trigger. He perhaps remembers the aftermath, the realization of what he did. That's just going to destroy his mind. I hope he's able to get over that. I'm going to wrap things up at this point. I will mention that I'm going to be making another video about another very similar case in just a few minutes. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit, and take care.